So welcome back to the making of Blackbird, the second half. I'll go through the break, aka the verse, the build-up, and also tell the story of the song. You can download all the second half of the samples of the song in the description, by the way. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the song starts off with this atmospheric sound. As I've said before, I try to start all my records with sort of a signature sound so that you can hear which track it is within like the first second. I felt this worked pretty nicely. Then the next sound is a pretty similar ambient sort of sound. These are both from a plugin called Kinetic Metal in Contact. An awesome plugin that I had just found when I started making this. Another ambient sort of sound. Then a barrel, all from the same plugin. As I said, I had just discovered that plugin when I was making this, so I used it on everything, as it's like sort of based around metal sounds and fit with the record. Then this metal sort of thing keeps the beat at like a half-beat rhythm, because you needed something to keep the rhythm, or else it was difficult to know where you was whilst listening, if you hear it like this. Then the next sound is an important sound of the break. Also this metal sounding thing, but it was from the plugin Diva with just a lot of reverb. Then these tribal drums gave it like this a sort of powerful big feel, at least I think so. Then this synth from Diva. It's like a big fat pad, which I wish I'd saved like the preset of, because I really like how it sounds now. It plays the chords throughout and then ends on the third chord here. To add some tension into the next part of the break, which is a trick I do a lot for build-ups. Another synth on top of this is added, just to help with like upper mid harmonics. It just helped in getting this synth fat. Then some effects and drums again, which just helps fill out. So this thing is a bit funny. It's a breathing thing that increases in volume towards the end of the segment, which is just me going in like my phone mic and putting it in, just adding some rhythm to it. It sort of worked, I don't know why. And you can't really hear it even, but it just adds this human touch as well. Something I also like to do is to add some nature sounds, which I've spoken about a lot before. This is the one I used this time, which is the ambient sound of a fireplace, like fire crackle. This actually goes out throughout almost the entire song. Then some impacts, because impacts, and also some white noise, which is layering over the tribal drums, but only once, only here and here. I don't know why I chose that. I probably had some reasoning for it back then, but now it doesn't make much sense. Then we have this weirder part of the record. You might be thinking, what kind of creepy ghost is singing? And I'll get to that in a minute. I think I'll just go over the vocals in the next part, actually. I have some white noise here and some cymbals. Finally, this synth finishes off the segment. It's a pluck from Synthplant, the plugin, with the pitch bend down in the end, and also some beat speak on it, as I love beat speak, to just detune it and make it ugly. So then we go into the main segment. So starting off, we have the snare, which is a snare inspired by the Jack U, Skrillex, those types of records, and I wanted to try and use that in a house track. I may even have sampled it from one of Jack U's or Skrillex songs when I think about it. At least a part of it. Anyways, remember to subscribe and like this video. The snare has this reverb automation that stops up here and there, and just to give it some groove. So for synths, we have this pad, which is again from Diva, which I wish I had saved the preset of. That was a mouthful. It's very detuned, has like a slight phaser on it, and I like it a lot. Following that, we have this sub, which is just gives that bottom oomph, that solid bass foundation, and it's just a simple sine wave pretty much. Then this next pad adds some highs to this one and adds some movement as well. Moves a bit around and character as well. So since the melodics so far are pretty slow moving, slow acting chords, we added this arpeggio that runs through the chords with some modulation to create like this little interesting melody thing. I'll just run through it. It's a pluck from Synplant, but it sounds so weird because I've EQ'd out all the mids but only in the sides again. So when you do that, I use the ProQ EQ from FabFilter. It gives the sound like phasing issues because it just messes it up, but then it sounds like this, and it sounds ugly alone, but it fits well in the mix because it doesn't really have to fight with too much other stuff. So to add to this rhythm, we still have these breathing things, which adds to the snare and makes them not stand out too much in the mix. Additionally, these claps are doing the same thing, and just to make it like more anthemic. So now for the creepy ghost thing. These are the layers. And this is sort of the one where it all began. It's just me doing this into the phone mic, which must look and sound very weird, but then I've pitched one up, I've pitched one down, and done some Foreman shifting, distorting. This one is pitched way up, Foreman shifted and distorted to make it sound how it sounds now, which sounds like this. The original take I recorded on my phone. I wish I had it because it sounds horrible without autotune and it would be funny to show you guys. But that was like 3 years ago, and the phone I had back then is now on the bottom of the sea somewhere in Norway. But yeah, it's a pretty sparse melody, so it needed some filling in between the space. So we had to come up with something in between. So these two things. This perk and this glide down synth helps into this pitch bended pluck with Echo Boy on it. And we also have this one from before that we have running through the track to keep that sound throughout. Then a lot of just small effects as always. These reverses, the wood crackle, some vocal shouts, and yeah, this impact, an uplifter and some rides, a reversed white noise, and this bit crush pluck thing again. We have another pitch descending sweep down sort of thing. To round this part off, we had some extra sounds that we actually added in the end. This is just for ambience and adding like this extra ambience. Sort of the same character as with the metal sounds of the intro. It sounds like it fits well with the other sounds because it has this like distorted crackly sound. Then we have this very lame guitar, but in the context of the rest of the sounds it adds like this nice vibe and groove, so it worked pretty well. This is how it sounds. Can't really hear it, but it works pretty well. And then even more ambience stuff. It might seem like overkill what we're doing, but having these lots of these small things, they really add up when mixed correctly to make things sound a lot bigger. These extra sounds were even added after the song was done, just because we wanted to fill it up like even more and make it more mystical, sort of. This ambience thing was something that Ellis sent me when we were like rounding up the track and finalizing, so I have no idea how he made it, but it sounds sick and added nicely to the rest of the sounds. a crash, some shakers on the second part, just to create some groove into the build-up. And we're pretty much off into the build-up with this starting synth sound, which goes into this. Which is a sound from Synth Plant, just pitching up with intervals of pitching down as well. So it does like this. It also, I'd forgotten about this, it has these glitches, which I wish I remembered how it did, because that was kind of cool, but I can't remember. Anyways, so now we have this for a build-up if I leave in everything that is being kept in from the last part, which is continuing into the build, if that makes sense. So this long downlifter adds some build-up feel, and this metallic sort of uplifter, I think. Yeah. It just adds some metallic feel. This pluck introduces this next stem, which is finally the drop melody. It's kind of just friendly, nice pluck, but this gradually lowers in volume. So while this one takes over, with less and less reverb to help transition into that sound, because it's very harsh. And to make that transition smoother, we start with this pluck. Yeah, then we had this impact, which is pretty massive, which also has an uplifter in it as well, and some rides. The snares come in ASAP here. And they're increasing in rate and also in pitch. It's pretty standard, but it works. Then we have this sub bass taking over since we lost the sub bass in the previous part, which just pitches up and turns into this uplifter as well. We have some white noise here towards the end. We have these claps just to like bring home that 4 to the floor feel even in the build-up. We have this higher pitched, I think. Yeah, this higher pitched version of the melody slowly coming in, which is actually the drop lead. So you get this kind of cool transition from this one into this one. I mean lower actually. So this one slowly takes over from this one, and we end up with this 3 counts of the last note, just to really hold the tension there and drive home the message that a drop is in fact coming. So that's the build-up, pretty much. As always, remember to ask questions if you have any, and I'll reply to that ASAP. To round this up, regarding how the track was signed and why it took so long to be released. As I said in the previous video, it was made almost 3 years ago, so why was it not released until now? So it's released on Future House Music, and we go way back. My first ever single in like 2015 was actually on their label, and it was their first single release as well. They've supported me a lot in my career, which I'm super grateful for. So that's awesome to be back here. Now, I sent this record to Alan Walker, a good friend of mine, once it was done, and he started playing it, debuting the record on Tomorrowland in 2017. But then I decided to take like sort of a step back from my career to learn more and focus on coming back stronger. I'll explain more about that in a later video. So the record was put on hold for a while. Sorry, Ellis and Future House Music. But now it's finally out and the reactions have been insane. So thank you everyone for listening and supporting. Make sure to check out Ellis, aka Ellis. He's amazing and super talented. I loved making this record with him. So remember to subscribe if you enjoyed watching and actually made it through. So thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you guys next week.